Today I am reviewing Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point. This was the first ever hyper coaster, the first ride over 200 feet, and it was built by Aerodynamics, and it is a landmark roller coaster, one of the most famous coasters out there. I'm going to be giving my full thoughts on it in today's review. As usual, let's start with the stats. It sits at a height of 205 feet with a 195-foot drop. Its angle of descent is 60 degrees. Its maximum speed is 72 miles per hour, and it travels over 5,000 feet of track, so it's a long ride. And it gives a duration of 2 minutes, and that is including the lift hill, and this lift hill is super slow. Like, oh my gosh, this lift hill takes forever. Good news is, because of this coaster's location, you're at least getting a good view. I mean, this coaster runs right up against the beach. At least you're getting something to look at. Like, it's not a parking lot or something like that, which is good. Now, as much as this coaster's location is good, you can't really see too much of it from when you're inside the park. You can really only see the brake run, the lift hill, and the station. If you want to get up close and personal with it, you have to walk along the beach or go into the water park. I saw people that were at Cedar Point for the first time and saw the big red hills in the distance and said, "What ride is that?" It was the ride they were in line for. They had no idea that that was the same coaster they were about to ride. Yeah, general public, am I right? Anyways, so let's talk about this ride experience. So you enter this really cool looking station and you get into these coaster cars, which the lap bar and the restraint system overall is just kind of weird. It's not the best restraint system because on those airtime hills, you're going to be hurting your thighs because these bars are very hard. There's nothing comfortable about them. It's a really weird restraint system. You don't see it on too many roller coasters. And frankly, I was not a fan of it. So you get to the top of the lift hill, and you go down this great looking drop, and go up into this first airtime hill, which I gotta be honest, I rode this coaster a couple of times, and I did not get a whole lot of airtime out of it. The main moments where I got airtime were on the smaller bunny hills at the end of the ride. Those have some good airtime moments, but again, because of the restraint system, it can be kind of painful. Also, this coaster is not exactly the smoothest. I found it to be really bumpy, which really took away from the ride. Some parts were better than others, and I wasn't expecting it to be as smooth as a B&M, especially since I know that this is an older roller coaster. But still, I was not crazy about how it gave what was, in my opinion, a rough ride. In my opinion, the stats about this ride are more impressive than the actual ride is. The big airtime hills I found didn't give a whole lot of airtime. It was the smaller ones towards the end, which the tunnels were cool. But quite frankly, I was not overall a fan of this ride. The first time I rode it, I got off it and said, that was it? Why is everyone obsessed with this ride? But then I went back and tried it in another row on another day to see if my opinion changed. Maybe I had just gotten a bad ride on it, and I kind of thought the same thing. I was not really a big fan of Magnum XL 200. I think that this is just one of those roller coasters that I've heard so many good things about, yet I wasn't a fan of, so I can't quite understand why people like this roller coaster so much. Now listen, there are many great things about this ride. The tunnels are good, the layout is good, it's a very cool looking roller coaster, I love the station for it. It's just mainly the restraint system and the smoothness that I don't like. Unfortunately, that is something that is a major part of this roller coaster. It's something that if it isn't quite right, then it really can ruin the experience. And I found that the smoothness level really did affect the rest of the ride for me. Sure, there were some good airtime moments, but I couldn't enjoy them as much as I wanted to because it was rough. Now let's talk about the actual airtime. I've told you where it's going to be. This is mostly ejector airtime from what I could find. It was those small bunny hills towards the end of the ride after the turnaround, and you just kind of get this pop out of your seat. Another thing I liked was that there wasn't a mid-course brake run. It shows that you don't have to have a mid-course brake run to have a nice long roller coaster and to be able to operate multiple trains. I mean, they were running 3 trains on this coaster when I was there, and it still didn't have that long of a line. And it makes me wonder why it didn't have as long of a line. Was it that many people weren't crazy about this ride like me? Or was it that they had a hard time finding it because it's kind of in a secluded area of the park, and if you didn't know about it, then you might not be able to find it. I could easily see some general public just completely missing this roller coaster because they had no idea where it was or they just didn't see it. But honestly, that's their fault. They were given a park map. They should know where it is. But let's give this coaster an overall score. I know I'm probably going to receive some flack for this, but I'm giving Magnum XL 200 a 6. And even that I think is kind of generous. part of me is leaning towards like a 5.5, and the reason I'm saying this is because I just didn't enjoy it as much as these other hypercoasters. I mean, I'm still giving it credit because it's an old ride. All the hypercoasters that I tend to enjoy more are a lot newer, and this was the first of its kind. So I completely understand that. With that being said, I enjoyed a lot of Cedar Point's other roller coasters more, such as Raptor, even Gatekeeper. So I want to know what you think of Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. Post your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to stay tuned for more coaster reviews here at Coaster Studios.